Story too big to miss is Hurricane Helene. It has killed over 100 Americans and has left the East Coast reeling. We'll talk with Al Robertson, who witnessed the devastation firsthand, plus JP Decker in studio with Mercury One, who has been helping with aid to the area. In Springfield, Ohio, we'll talk to the police chief of a local area in Tremont City. He's told us exclusively about the radio silence in Springfield and the shutting off of the scanners for nearby communities. What does that all mean? What are they hiding? And we'll have the security expert Erik Prince on the show, who will unpack the incredible story this weekend where the Secret Service was tasked with protecting the president of Iran, a state sponsor of terror, while Donald Trump said that he had to downgrade his venue in Wisconsin out of security concerns. Blaze News Tonight starts right now. To the chaos. I'm Jill Savage. Today is Monday, September 30th. Hurricane Helene has left over 100 people dead. Thousands are missing and millions are without power. President Joe Biden recently commented on the storm and said that the feds have given all they have to give on the emergency response.
It's stunning.
It's unbelievable that it really is. Such a wide area.
And we've given them all everything we have. We're on the ground ahead of time, so we're working hard.
Are there any more resources the federal government could be giving them?
No, we have pre-planned a significant amount of it, even though they didn't ask for it yet.
Biden recently rolled out the red carpet for Ukraine President Zelensky, giving him another $2.4 billion at a time when millions of Americans are hurting. And it made BlazeTV host Steve Day say that North Carolina should change its name to Ukraine. Meanwhile, President Trump, he was on the scene in Georgia talking to local officials about the hurricane fallout, and he announced in a statement that we're now heading to Valdosta, Georgia, in order to pay my respects and bring lots of relief material, including food, equipment, water, and other things to the state. Leaves many wondering, where is Kamala Harris? Joining me now to discuss Hurricane Helene's devastation and what Americans are doing about it is Matthew Peterson, editor-in-chief of Blaze News, JP Decker, executive director of Mercury One, and Al Robertson, Blaze TV co-host of Unashamed. So Al, I know you and your family were dealing with this. So can you tell us what happened and how others are dealing with this in North Carolina right now?
Well, thank you guys for having me. We were on our way to an event in Raleigh and stopped off in Black Mountain to visit some of our family. And, we knew the storm was coming, but just, didn't know how strong it would be once it got there. What we didn't really realize is they had 2 days of probably 20 plus inches of rain prior to the tropical storm reaching there. And so what that did was that set everything ready to just literally explode. And so when that tropical storm came through and then dropped more water, and with the high winds that took down all the trees, it looks like a war zone. And so we basically got trapped there. We couldn't get out in any direction. There was no water, there was no power, there was no phone service at all. And so you didn't know what was going on. You had no way to communicate with the outside world. So I have to say, the folks that are still there, God bless them, because it was a terrifying experience for us just being in it for 2 days.
And JP, I know that you've once again partnered with Representative Corey Mills, and Mercury One has been doing so much to help in instances like these. So what are you doing here today?
Yeah, actually, it was interesting over the weekend. We heard about the devastation that was happening, and I reached out to Corey, gave him a text and said, hey, do you have any helicopters? He actually said, yeah, I've got helicopters. I said, great, we've got supplies. Let's get it out there. So earlier today, he flew 2 helicopters out to Asheville, landed in Asheville, and is delivering waters, all kinds of different supplies, food supplies, because right now they don't have any water. They're saying they might not have clean water for at least 3 to 4 weeks. There's people stuck up in the mountains still, and we're there. We're there across not just North Carolina. We're also helping create communications for Tennessee, rural areas. We've got Starlinks actually that also went into Asheville. They only had 1. Corey's taken about 6 to help people get communications in there. But with Mercury One, we like to be the first in and the last out. So that's what we're doing.
Al, is there something that people should know out there that maybe they don't, that you see people not talking about, given the situation you're experiencing on the ground? What do you feel like people should know?
Well, I love what JP was just talking about with, people being able to bring in supplies, because the most frightening thing for those there is they have no access to water. They can't get gasoline. So even if they have generators, they're not able to use them. And there were a lot of people like us who were visiting that area because it's a high tourist area. And they were just stuck on the side of the interstate. And I'm hoping by now there's been a way to get some gasoline in, or get some way to get those folks help, because they were running out of gas along I-40 and it was closed on both ends. And so they literally had no place. At least some of those families have prepared well in the North Carolina area to get through a few days, but getting fresh supplies in, getting gasoline in, anything like that is going to be a big help. And there has been one open way through 26 South, which is how we finally got out. I loved the idea about the helicopters. We were sitting outside. When I heard helicopters, I had hope, because I said, well, people are at least looking what's going on and figuring out how they can get help to these people, because it's a very frightening situation.
JP, can you give a sense of the scope of this? I mean, I keep seeing these reports. I know I cannot believe what's on Twitter. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff going on online when it comes to this, which is unfortunate. But my sense is this is just a large scale, disaster, obviously very severe. What's the extent? What's the scope? What's the big picture?
Yeah, I think the big picture is we saw this last year in Lahaina. We saw, a lot of the people weren't able to get in to help, and it was the locals that stepped up. That's what we're seeing now. No one can get in and no one can get out. So even, as early as today, we heard that FEMA wasn't there yet. National Guard hadn't gone in yet. Red Cross hadn't even gone in yet. And so that's the impact this is having. Trucks can't get in yet. There's just interesting how I found out about a lot of this was a friend of mine was not at home in Asheville, and his daughter and 3-year-old were there, and they went missing. And so he ended up flying back, got on a helicopter. He's a former Green Beret, so he stepped up, and he ended up finding them about 100 other people that were hiding.
Wow.
And that's what's happening is their stories aren't being told, because, and they are now, thanks to the Blaze and what we're doing, but those stories aren't being told. And that's what we saw in Lahaina. That's what we saw in East Palestine. This is a much bigger situation than what's being told on the mainstream media.
Okay, this right here is incredibly important, I think, to our audience and to all of us here to get this right. And, I will say, I was part of this sentiment last night, online, doing nothing but write words, but I became so angry looking at what was going on, like so many other people, because you look at the situation and you think of how much money we spend, right, on Ukraine, as Steve said, or the fact that we're giving debit cards, free hotel rooms and flights here to illegal immigrants used as indentured servants or for votes for power. We're doing the same for homeless, criminals, addicts. And you look at this and say, can we do this? Can we provide the same level of care and attention to the American people? And look, I don't want to politicize this, right? I don't want to politicize disaster, but I feel like it's already politicized, not least of which because FEMA, as we were just talking about before the show, has literally said on its website that the number one goal is equity. And that means taking into account people's race, gender, I guess sexuality when it comes to disaster management and response. They're very proud of this. This is their number one objective. And so I would just say, like, Lahaina, you bring this up. You're the one who's there and saying this. I'm curious what you both think. I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to politicize this, but I think that people have lost trust for good reason, and we'll be watching the response very closely. And I'm curious whether you think that response has already been botched.
Yeah, I do. I think it already has. And that's why Mercury One does what we do. It is the everyday person who's upset and frustrated that our government's not doing anything. And again, we don't have to have our government do everything. But this is one of those moments where we should step up and help our fellow Americans instead of people outside of this world that we just gave a few billion to in Ukraine. And so yet again, our government is failing the everyday American who just needs help. And that's why we do what we do.
And if people want to help, where should they go?
Mercury1.org.
It's all over the front page. They will be able to find it. Al will give you the last word here.
Well, I agree with everything that's been said. I saw people, literally neighbors, with chainsaws, people sharing gasoline. I saw the community rising up for one another. But we needed something bigger in a moment like this because there were a lot of people trapped there that didn't have family, that didn't know people. And that's when we rely on our government to step in and get people in ASAP, whatever it takes. And I was there 2.5 days, and we never saw anybody except the locals. And that was really sad.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining us again. Mercury1.org if you want to help those who really, we've heard it here, the government is not coming and stepping in. So we have to do what we can for our fellow Americans. Thanks so much, you guys. When we come back, the Tremont City Police Chief joins us with an update on the Springfield migrant crisis next. Don't kid yourself, the future of the Supreme Court is on the ballot, and these radical leftists want to eliminate the court's conservative majority by packing the Supreme Court with their own handpicked justices to get the outcomes that they want. And even President Biden has gotten into the act by making reforming the court one of his final priorities before he leaves office. But don't be fooled, because their end game is really court packing. At First Liberty, they call this assault on the court what it really is. It's a Supreme Court coup. These extremists want to eliminate the court's conservative majority by packing the Supreme Court with their own handpicked justices to get the outcomes that they want. And the frightening thing is that come January, their plan could become our nation's reality. Simple majority votes in the House and Senate, combined with the president's signature, could put their plan to pack the court into law. And that's why they're sounding the alarm. And they need you to join them. Because if we take action together, if we unite our voices, we can put a stop to the radical left's plan to take control of the Supreme Court. As the 2024 election's approaching, we need to do 3 things. 1, find out where each of your candidates stand on the radical issues of packing and purging the court. Then share what you learn with everyone. And 3rd, do your civic duty and vote, because the future of the court and preserving an independent judiciary is in our hands. If we lose the court, we lose the country. And that's why First Liberty is taking action. And they need all of us to join them. With patriots like you standing for the Supreme Court, we can safeguard the independence of the judiciary, just as the founding fathers intended. And by saying no to the left's Supreme Court coup, we can secure the blessings of liberty and protect the future of our constitutional rights for our children and grandchildren. Go to supremecoup.com/Jill. That's supremecoup.com/Jill to learn how you can help stop the radical left's takeover of the Supreme Court.
Last time I was here, you said to me that the radio systems with Springfield had changed. Like, what exactly was going on with that?
Well, we were able to hear them on the radio, and apparently they have decided to go silent or incognito, however they decide to do it. So we don't know what's going on in the city. That happened the day they brought the state troopers in to help them out. So after that, we have no idea what's going on now.
That was the chief of police from Tremont City, Chad Duncan, who has witnessed firsthand the upheaval to Springfield, Ohio, and the fallout for local law enforcement. And Chad joins us right now. So thanks so much for your time. I would love to start with just the radio communications that we heard there. And are they still down in between the towns?
Yeah, Springfield is still, they have encrypted all of the Springfield radios. That includes the police, the fire, everything. So we have no way of hearing what's going on with them.
I just can't help but ask. I mean, so what do you think is going on? They haven't communicated why?
They have, after our interview the last time, they said it's for officer safety. If that's the case, I didn't know it was so unsafe in the city all of a sudden, but maybe it is, and we just don't know about it. So
curious timing. Well, let me say, what I was going to ask you is that video that we just showed is a short version of a longer interview that I believe will be on YouTube at BlazeTV soon along with another article. There's already one out there you can find at theblaze.com about what you told Julio. I was wondering about any kind of fallout since. I mean, that video we just showed, I think, had 360,000 views. I mean, you sort of went viral there, Chad. and a lot of people asking a lot of questions. What has it been like since the last interview?
Everybody, that knows me, they're telling me just be careful, watch my six. And I'm not really worried about that. I think it's time for us to just put it out there. Everybody says they're going to do something. They want to do something. I've decided that I would do something. I would speak my mind and what everybody else is afraid to speak. So,
well, good for you.
Yeah.
And I just want to know on a personal level, right? Like you're in the neighboring town right now. What is it like? There's media coverage, there's national attention. People keep talking about it. What is life like there right now?
It's a little bit different. Everybody is on edge, and I understand why they're on edge. I think that things have been done so quickly, so drastically, and the answers that we get just don't add up.
Chad, it was interesting to me how you basically said, what I took from some of what you said was follow the money. That obviously there's a lot of money here. And I don't know if you saw this, but recently Ezra Namani published an article over the weekend saying that George Ten, who owns the staffing agency Diversity First that brought in a lot of the Haitians, she says that's a $180 million operation. $180 million. And I mean, that's a lot of money. So I can only imagine how that has been spread throughout the city. This is how it works. Have you, do you talk about that a lot with people? Do you guys see a lot of evidence of, politicians, people getting rich off this?
We see people, I think people are lining their pockets at the expense of not only the Haitians, but the American people. That's why I decided to speak up. This shouldn't be happening. There could have been better ways that this was done that would have been beneficial for everybody involved, like I said in my last interview. However, it wasn't done that way. So here we are, and let's just be honest, this problem ain't going to go away. We're going to have to figure out now, instead of standing around and crying about it, we're going to have to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, there certainly is. That is something that I think every American should be concerned about and be interested in the answer to that question, and not just to help Springfield, but to help themselves, because this is going to happen in a lot of other places. And so if we don't stand here, what are we going to do? I'm curious whether you have thoughts about the fact that this issue is probably going to be raised tomorrow night, let's be honest, in the debate between the vice presidential candidates. I can almost guarantee that they're going to be talking about Springfield, Ohio. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, I just hope that before somebody says anything, make sure they have the facts. I know that it was put out there on the internet, of course, that they were eating dogs and cats here in Springfield. There has been no evidence of that. However, they have been taking geese, they have been taking ducks, they've taken livestock, and they're eating it. I get that, and that's the way they do in their country. So, here we are. They've never been acclimated to America's ways and cultures. So their third world way of living comes over here, and that's just what they continue to do. And it just doesn't work for America.
Well, Chad, we really appreciate you taking the time out today, and we'd love to have you back on the show some point in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
When we come back, Secret Service prioritized Iran over former President Donald Trump. Up next. You don't have to wait until November to vote. You can vote every day with your dollar at goodranchers.com. You can make a powerful choice to vote for American meat, support American agriculture, and make your voice heard for transparency in our food. Good Ranchers sources all of their meat exclusively from American farms, which not only supports local ranchers, but also ensures that you receive high-quality American-raised meat with no antibiotics or hormones or seed oils ever. By shopping from GoodRanchers.com, you're making a statement about the kind of values that you stand for: quality, hard work, dedication to the American tradition. And right now, Good Ranchers is having a presidential promo. So for a limited time, you can get a free add-on for a whole 4 years. And that means when you subscribe to one of their boxes, you can get extra chicken breast, ground beef, apple, smokewood bacon, or wild-caught salmon in your order for every 4 years. Now, it's a perfect way to ensure that you have high-quality American meat in your kitchen. Every cut is pre-trimmed and individually packed and vacuum sealed, which makes your life easier. There's no more messy meal prep and no wasted food because of poor storage packaging. Good Ranchers helps you get the most flavor and value out of every ounce of meat that you buy, and in this economy, that matters more and more each day. So don't miss out. Use my code Jill to claim this presidential promo worth over $1,200 and claim $25 off your first box, plus free express shipping, and bring 100% American meat to your family meals until 2028. It's GoodRanchers.com, code Jill. GoodRanchers.com, American meat delivered. The Secret Service this weekend experienced some more bad optics. It was tasked with protecting the president of Iran, a national sponsor of state terrorism that is implicated in the plot to kill former President Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Trump announced this weekend that he had to downgrade his venue in Wisconsin.
Thousands and thousands of people, and they all could have had a lot of fun. Instead, now they're probably leaving and walking back home, because we have a nice little room that probably holds 1,500, 2,000, maybe less. And outside you have 40, 50,000 people, because the administration couldn't give us the Secret Service necessary, because they're guarding the Iranian president who's looking to kill Trump. Can you believe it?
The Secret Service explains that this is exactly why Acting Director Ronald Rowe has called for a paradigm shift. The U.S. Secret Service Chief of Communications, Anthony Guglielmi, said that Trump is, quote, receiving heightened levels of U.S. Secret Service protection, and our top priority is mitigating risks to ensure his continued safety at all times. Out of our concern for operational security, we cannot provide specific details about resources allocated for event security or communications between agency personnel and our protectees. Yet the optics are still bad, because protecting Iranian President Raisi, the head of state terrorism, while former President Donald Trump complains about reduced resources. Are you guys kidding at this point? Joining us now to discuss the Secret Service misplaced priorities is Erik Prince, Navy SEAL vet and host of Off Leash with Erik Prince. Thanks so much for joining us once again. So, Erik, what do you make of this mess?
It's consistent with what I've been calling for. You have leadership of the Secret Service staffed by unserious people that have never been held to account for failing. I don't think Secret Service is capable of healing itself in time for election. I think President Trump needs additional security immediately. And the fastest way to do that is bilaterally from JSOC, from the Joint Special Operations Command, which includes SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force. They have a lot of the most highly trained, commando-capable people in the world. I think it's best to use them in an outer ring, in an advanced role, because it takes a hunter to stop a hunter. And, you know, the last two times were a single one-off kind of idiot would-be assassins. If the Iranians or another cartel were to try with a 6, 8, or 10-man team, I fear what the outcome could be. So again, there's precedence in using highly trained DoD people around the president. The explosive ordnance disposal technicians come from the military, particularly for handling chemical or biological type weapons or nuke. And then, of course, you know, when George Herbert Walker Bush was president and he would be fishing up in Kennebunkport, Maine, he was protected by SEAL Team 6 boats with SEAL Team 6 operators with SEAL Team 6 guns, protecting Bush or other world leaders that were up there fishing with him. This can be done. This is a matter of the Secret Service bureaucracy asking for it. I do believe the military would be supportive of it. They can handle both candidates, and I would say there is no other national mission of importance, of higher importance, in keeping both presidential candidates alive through the election and through to the inauguration, because we have a very convoluted world right now with a lot of threats and a lot of moving parts. And I think the danger to Trump is really unprecedented. There's never been 2 assassination attempts against a presidential candidate within 2 months ever, I believe, in the Republic's history.
Erik, what can you tell us about, is there any indication that on either side of this, people are talking or thinking about this option, either from the Trump family or campaign or from the Secret Service? I mean, because it seems like we would need both of those parties in agreement. Is there any movement here or interest?
I can't speak to those level of conversations, but I know some recommendations have been made and a path described of how to do this. So hopefully people do the right thing and prevent a debacle from happening. You know, when the tape you were playing at the beginning of the interview, where Trump was saying 50,000 people waiting, I believe those numbers because he's packed some massive venues. I've been following the cell phone data of Kamala Harris's rallies in North Carolina, and they had to bus in 3,600 people from Georgia, from the same area codes in Georgia and Savannah, all bussed in. Had to time it exactly right because they had to be bussed in. They could only be at the venue for a couple of hours because there's a 24-hour maximum that the bus rentals were available for, and they had to get people back in time. So I think those are actually Crowds for Hire, which is a left-wing organizing group which lets you do a rent-a-crowd as a way for her to fill up the venue. So it's amazing the sham the left will pull everywhere, not just in the media, but even in some fake attended rallies by bussed in, paid for, called attendees and enthusiasts.
Erik, you spoke on the panel at the parallel investigation for the first Trump assassination attempt. How have things progressed in that area, and will we ever get the answers that we need?
I don't know that we will under current Secret Service leadership. I know the ranks of the Secret Service. As I've described before, there's 10% of the agents are fantastic. They're Olympic class. They're carrying a lot of water. 40% are kind of mid-level bureaucrats, and a lot of the other ones are just almost maligned, that just don't belong. So until there's a regrading, a requalification of all those people that are going to be around the president with a firearm, going to continue to be disappointed. I understand that the HSI agents that were assigned to the detail in Butler, Pennsylvania, a lot of them had only had a 2-hour video course, like a Zoom course, on executive protection before they were assigned to protect Donald Trump that day. So it's just a big collection of unseriousness. I do understand that President Trump is planning to go back to Butler, Pennsylvania in early October. So I really hope the Secret Service has their game up that day and protects from all kinds of threats. Because there's a wide range, whether there's rumors of man pads being smuggled into America, entirely possible when you have that many millions of people flowing across the border. A man pad is a surface-to-air missile like an IGLA or a Stinger, an infrared guided missile, which would definitely track on the motor of his 757. It would be a catastrophic way to take down the entire aircraft. Extremely dangerous. And with as many missiles and as much nonsense has been sent to Ukraine, a lot of stuff has gone missing. Whether it's from the amount of weapons the U.S. sent, that the Obama administration sent into Syria, or as much has been sent by the Biden administration to Ukraine, including man pads, the possibility of an anti-tank missile or a surface-to-air missile being missing and smuggled into America is entirely possible. If you look at the high-end cartels in Mexico, they routinely produce some very high-end purchased exotic U.S. weaponry that has come from the Ukraine front. So the idea of that coming across the border, try to get Trump, is certainly not impossible.
Erik, 30 seconds we have left. Tell us a little bit about next steps for the parallel investigation. Anything you can tell us about where that's going?
Again, without subpoena power, they will continue to get high quality walk-in people that care, whether it's at the local law enforcement and federal, almost whistleblowers that want to voluntarily get the truth out. And I don't think good people that sign up to work for these organizations want to be part of a bad organization with a tattered reputation. That's not what people put the time and the discipline in to be whether it's a great Secret Service or a great FBI agent or whatever they're trying to do. But until you have accountability to cut out the bad, it devastates the whole organization. So again, elections must have consequences and change must be coming.
Erik Prince, once again, thanks so much for joining us. Christopher Bedford joins us to unpack Tim Walz's worst lies, coming up next. There's nothing better at the end of a long day than sitting down in your favorite easy chair with your favorite glass of whiskey. And hey, if it turns out that with every glass you're helping to support a great American cause, doesn't it make it just that much better? It's time to chart your own course with Flying Ace whiskeys from Craftco, inspired by generations of American aviators and proudly made right here in the United States. Flying Ace is not only making amazing whiskeys, they're also committed to supporting our troops and their brave families through their partnership with Folds of Honor. They're providing scholarships to the families of Americans fallen or disabled, and these scholarships allow families to begin to chart their own new course after experiencing great sacrifice. Flying Ace whiskeys are American proud because they're American made, and they're American proud because they're helping to support our heroes and their families. So don't wait. Today's the day to get your own and see what the hype is all about. Buy online at flyingacespirits.com. Use code America to get free shipping. That's flyingacespirits.com. Code America for free shipping. This weekend, Donald Trump got some love from an enthusiastic crowd when he made an appearance at the Alabama-Georgia football game. In Alabama is a lawsuit from the Biden Department of Justice that is trying to stop the state from keeping non-citizens and illegals from voting. Stunning how this administration makes no secret of its desire to allow illegal aliens to get away with voting in U.S. elections. The border crisis will feature prominently in the vice presidential debate tomorrow night between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. And Tim Walz is under the spotlight for millions of Americans for the first time, but he's taking heat from journalists across the spectrum for playing it fast and loose with the facts. Our D.C. correspondent Chris Bedford did a deep dive into Walz's pile of lies and found that the most prominent ones for us to keep an eye on for the Blaze coverage of the VP debate tomorrow night. So he joins us now to unpack his Beltway brief. Chris Bedford, Blaze Media's senior editor for politics. So what was the most egregious lie that you found?
Well, I think some of the most egregious ones are ones that are pretty well known. Just to start off, I mean, the stolen valor, it doesn't just include him talking about carrying a weapon in war and him constantly over more than a decade in public life, insinuating in interviews and in speeches and in introductions that he received incorrect that he was a combat veteran or had even been in the combat theater, but misrepresenting his rank, pretending that he had taken command of a unit. And then when all of that came crashing down and he was obviously lying and his own comrades came out and threatened to swift boat him if they made this as big a thing as they really clearly intended to make it, he said, well, it was just a mistake of his grammar. Such just more lying. It's just interesting. And of course, another one of the ones that are pretty well known, because I'll get into some others in a moment, was the IVF story. This is something that the media really ran with. NPR said he was a representative of a new level of fertility justice. And this person was just an encapsulator of everything Republicans want to ban and stop. Now, there's two main problems with that. One is that he didn't use IVF with his wife. That's not how they conceived any children. And the second is that there are no Republicans, at least of note in any states on the national level, who want to ban IVF treatment. It's based on one ruling on a pretty egregious case of a clinic that severely mistreated and mishandled somebody's embryos. And that's what that case was about. So every bit of it was a lie. But if you dig in further, you start to see more stories. Like, he claimed to have been at Tiananmen Square, or at least nearby. There's now newspaper evidence to show that no, he was in Nebraska during Tiananmen Square. It's not just a complete mismemory. It's completely made up. He claimed that Donald Trump and Project 2025 are going to start a new government agency to monitor pregnancies. None of that's true. Donald Trump has reversed, I think, much to the ire of a lot of pro-lifers, stepped back from some of his stronger opinions, but that was never even considered. And it's not in Project 2025. So what you see is, in comparison to, say, Joe Biden, who is constantly spinning yarns, telling stories about how he grew up, which are almost certainly not true, talking about fighting popcorn or corn pop or whatever at the pool, may or may not be true. Those are kind of just like grandpa yarns, whereas Tim Walz's lies come together to form a concerted effort in a career to shape who he is and what he stands for, and to use that to get political gain. It's different.
Chris, 60 seconds left, but give us what each of these candidates should do in the debate tomorrow. What should Walz be trying to do, and what should JD be trying to do?
Well, I think the conventional wisdom, and it's correct, is you can't do that much good in a vice presidential debate. All you can do is cause damage. You can hurt someone. You're not going to add points to the Trump ticket. But Walz is going to be defensive out there. He's got literally 1/20th of the public media appearances that JD Vance has had. Vance has put himself out there as a warrior. Walz is someone they tried to make like a Homer Simpson, America's dad figure. It didn't work. Turns out he's a political liar. He's a hardcore leftist. I think he can't explain Kamala Harris's policies. Even she can't explain them. So now he's been hiding. You're going to have JD Vance, who's proven himself to be one of the most capable messengers, political messengers that the MAGAs Republicans have seen in a long, long time. Him out there on the stage, he's going to be going after and trying to expose this myth that he's just your normal football coach, a character who normalizes Kamala Harris's pretty radical policies, and expose him as someone who doesn't just lie about things, but shuts down your schools and will not let the National Guard defend Minneapolis when it's being burned to the ground. These are the sorts of lies he can expose and try to bring the American people and use that to cause damage to Harris's campaign.
We will look forward to that, and we will see you on BlazeTV's coverage of the vice presidential debate tomorrow night. It all gets started at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. Bedford, thanks so much.
I'll see you there.
How could a union strike impact prices for everyday Americans? Coming up next. I've got really, really exciting news for people to share. Matthew Peterson has a magazine in his hands right now, and he knows more about this than just about anybody. Matt, tell the people what Frontier Magazine is.
This represents a lot of great work behind the scenes that we've done over the last few months to put together something that is something that everyone on the right has talked about doing and no one has actually accomplished, which is the magazine of your dreams.
It is beautiful. Who's in there? Who are some of the featured articles by? So the
incredible thing about this is that we have a number of people that you know and recognize, a profile on Chris Rufo and what he's been up to, Matt Taibbi talking about walking in to Twitter, what became the Twitter files, the genesis of all of that, and how crazy that was and what that was like. Long interview with Glenn Beck about how he's trying to save American artifacts. You know him as a media figure, but you really get to know what he's trying to do here. You also have Mark Levin not talking about politics, but how he came to love people who work with their hands and why he's a big MMA fan. We call it Mark Levin, Florida man, because he did move to Florida not long ago. You also have Peter Giedel, who you've seen on the show, writing about El Salvador, like going down there and seeing that. I mean, there's reviews of all kinds of incredible, products from whiskey on out. There's poetry. I mean, this is just the coffee table magazine, and it's beautiful. It really is.
We're going to do a deep dive on Wednesday's show, but you might be saying, oh my gosh, how do I get that? Well, it's a new exciting membership. It's Blaze Unlimited membership, and you get this really cool little black card here, and it says founding member on the back of it. You probably can't see that so closely, but with a founding member, you're going to get another step forward in taking back the fight against the state-run media, all the propaganda, everything that's going on. And as a founding member of Blaze Unlimited, you'll receive a free limited edition of the members card, behind-the-scenes content, and VIP access. Because what we're doing with this is we want it to be more than just you're a part of this. Like, you're going to be a part of the actual conversation and make your voice heard to make sure that you are taking a step and pushing back and fighting for the truth. So this membership, it's more than just sitting on the sidelines. It's about actively joining the mission, and that's what we like, Peterson.
Yeah, this is joining a community, and we'll talk more about this on Wednesday. But what Frontier means, what this is about, is finding free space in your life and taking control over it, and building new, big, beautiful, and good things. And we focus on people who are doing amazing things within the context of where we live now, and that's what we need to all come to band together to do.
So people can go to blazeunlimited.com/BNT to claim your spot. Now, we know this isn't going to be for everyone because there are limited space available for this, but let's stand together and push back and keep the American spirit alive. Join Blaze Unlimited today. We're just getting started. There's more disaster on the horizon for Americans. A story that has gone underneath the radar is the port strike that is set to take place at midnight. And when you look at this is a story that is going to have massive disruption and higher prices for you on a wide range of products. So joining us now to break down what the port strike will mean for you is Mark Mix, president of the National Right to Work Committee. So Mark, thanks so much for taking some time for us tonight, because this is going to be a huge story. So how is this going to affect everyday Americans?
Yeah. Jill, to your point, we're about 6 hours away from a decision for about 45,000 port workers on the East Coast to walk off the jobs. And let me quote Harold Daggett, the president of the International Longshoremen Association, the president of the union that's going on strike here at midnight if we don't get some solution. He says this, and I quote, "I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means." That's his quote about what it means to have a strike in this supply chain and in our economy, which could cost us up to $5 billion and some GDP loss. So it's got a big deal. Shelves may be empty here in a week or two. And so it's going to have a real impact on the economy and, unfortunately, individual people across the country.
Mark, zero in on this. I mean, so is it true that even if they shut down for a week or two, that causes massive problems for all of us?
Yeah, Matt, we think that the supply chain will be affected into 2025, according to folks that are involved in it, the trucking industry and others who move these products that come in on these big ships and go to the port and unloaded and then work their way into the economic system. I mean, this happens to affect, clothing for Christmas and those types of things. I think a lot of vendors, a lot of retailers prepared for this, thinking this might be eventually what was going to happen. And they may be right. But yeah, the impact doesn't just affect us this week or next week or the third week when Daggett says that malls will shut down because there'll be no close, but into 2025. So the impact on the economy and our GDP could be really, really dramatic.
Mark, there are so many different aspects to this story. One, there are 6-year contracts. I know that the talks stalled back in June, and they haven't had any further discussion since then. That's a very long time to go without talking. And they're looking for a 77% wage hike. So it feels like we're at some extremes right now. So how long do you think that this could take to get through?
Well, you don't know. I mean, we had strikes that last for a day, strikes that get settled at the last minute, and strikes that last for literally weeks. I mean, we look at, GM strikes. We had the automotive strike and the rail strike that was postponed because of, or at least shortened because of Biden's intervention there. And so you got a political implications as it relates to Biden and Harris. And then you have the union saying, don't get involved. There is an ability for the administration to step in under the Taft-Hartley Act, which was passed in 1947. The administration can request an 80-day cooling off period so that the strike would be delayed and get these people back to the table. But Jill, to your point, as far as I understand, the United States Maritime Association and the ILA have not had any talks, to your point, for the last 3 months, and that doesn't militate in favor of any kind of solution by midnight tonight. So I think we're going on strike. How long it lasts is up to Harold Daggett, really, and whether or not he holds out on the 77% pay increase. And then probably the other primary issue is the automation. The idea that there can be no technological advances on the ports and they can't actually use technology that would make it more efficient, more productive, and maybe more cost effective for consumers like all of us.
Well, Mark, what do you expect if you're out there and you're just somebody listening to this right now? What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, you probably got to go get your toilet paper and get your baby formula and get your bananas and your meat for the first week, because produce and fruit will be the first thing that suffers. And then we'll have the clothing and the textiles and the other imports. The construction industry looking for metal and lumber and those types of things if it goes on 3 or 4 weeks. You know, the issue for us, Jill and Matt, is one that deals with forced unionization. One of the things we think the ILA is holding out on, the union's holding out on, is the hybrid points at Charleston, South Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina, and Savannah, Georgia, where non-union employees work side by side with union employers. One of the things that's in the master agreement that exists today, that they're working under for the next 6 hours, it looks like, includes a provision that any new terminals that would go online must be only union. And so right now we have about 2,000 non-union members that work at those hybrid ports that would have their jobs be in jeopardy because of a new agreement that says, hey, we're not going to work side by side with non-union employees. So that's where the Right to Work Committee is involved. But to your point, Jill and Matt, from a regular consumer standpoint, there could be trouble ahead when it comes to those basic things that we take for granted on the shelves at the grocery store and on the shopping malls, and then the materials we use for construction and other manufacturing processes in the country.
Well, you hate to hear it, but Mark Mix, thanks so much for joining us and giving us this update.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Matt.
And Matt, it sounds like when he's talking there, it's just a little bit of everything that we talk about on this show, right? The AI stuff that's coming in, just where you should be shopping on a daily basis. It's hitting a ton of our touch points that we really try to talk about here on Blaze.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a point in America where basic infrastructure is, at risk, and we're talking about it every day, whether it's natural disasters or our inability to, say, save people in space. We need Elon Musk to do that for us. We're going to be talking about that more. When you look at something like this, we're in a place where we talk about basic infrastructure a lot.
Yeah, and infrastructure and just helping people, and just the way that we started the show today with our friends from Mercury One, JP Decker, joining us. And go to mercury1.org if you can donate for the hurricane victims there. But the other big point today, and somebody that we've had on the show many times now, is Erik Prince. And I think one of the things that our audience has really resonated with is the Trump assassination attempts. And one of the things that Erik said today that he hadn't said before was talking about the level of conversations that he's had with Donald Trump. He couldn't reveal them, but he said for the first time since we've had him on, proposals have been made.
Yeah, well, to be fair, he didn't exactly say that he himself spoke to Trump, but what he did say was he couldn't speak to the highest level conversations, right, that have been occurring. But it sounded to me like he essentially said the proposal has been made. It's on the table, and perhaps even both ways, to the government and to the Trump administration. So I found that very interesting. I find that sort of hopeful because I think that a lot of us think there needs to be extra security on the president, former president of the United States, Donald Trump. And that needs to happen right away because we don't want anything to happen between now and November.
Erik Prince said he needs more security. It takes a hunter to stop a hunter. So we really appreciate everybody coming on the show today, and we'll be back with more Blaze News Tonight tomorrow.
Erik Prince, good person to listen to.
Good person. He knows.